Good evening. Please have your attention. We'd like to get started we would like to begin tonight's candidate forum presented by Common Sense Swansboro. This forum is designed to foster community civic engagement and it's nonpartisan in nature. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Swansboro United Methodist Church for allowing the use of their state-of-the-art facilities. Take notice, pretty nice. Also, thank you to our volunteers who have helped make this event possible. Before we begin, I'd like to address some housekeeping items. Please silence your cell phones. Please be respectful during the event. Restrooms and water fountains are located in the entrance hallway to the rear, and child care services are offered in the downstairs nursery, accessible by elevator in this hallway through the doors on the south side. Tonight's event will be moderated by Jimmy Williams, editor of Tyler News. Whitney Cantrell will be timekeeper. I'm your host, Jake Brown. I'd like to begin with an introduction of our candidates. We are joined by two incumbent candidates, Jeff Conaway and Pat Turner. The challenger candidates are Wayne Herbert and Tim Vanol. We are grateful to all candidates and residents for joining us in what we hope will be an engaging, informative, and respectful exchange of ideas. The agenda for tonight's forum is as follows. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for introductory remarks. We will then move into the moderator-led questions, which will be displayed on the screens as they are asked. We will be adhering to a strict 3-minute response policy from all the participating candidates. You will receive a signal when 30 seconds are remained and a red signal going, your time is up. Sanders clarified this earlier. He's going to put all that timing on the screen. So 30-second countdown will be on your screen, and then when your time is up, you will also photo. After the moderator questions, we will open the floor to audience Q&A. A microphone will be placed at the center aisle, and citizens are asked to queue behind the microphone for a chance to ask. Please keep questions respectful, concise, and specific. Our moderator may rephrase or limit questions to keep the floor moving and ensure everyone has a chance to participate. Thank you, and let's begin. Jimmy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jake. Swansboro voters will elect 3 commissioners in November. The top 2 finishers will serve 4-year terms, and the candidate finishing in 3rd place will serve for 2 years. All 5 of the registered candidates had agreed to participate in the Common Sense Swansboro Forum, but just before the deadline, incumbent Joe Brown changed his mind. Joe is nearing the end of his 2-year term. At this point, we're going to open up the forum and allow the candidates, beginning with Jeff Conaway, their 3-minute introductory remarks.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Conaway. I am running for re-election for Swansboro Commission. I'm a retired Navy Chief Petty Officer that spent 22 years in the United States Navy. As of 30 September, I'm a retired civil service worker after 20 years. 18 years ago, my wife and I bought our home in Swansboro, where we began raising our family. My wife started teaching Swansboro Elementary School. We chose to live in Swansboro because it reminded us of a small town we both grew up in. Over the last 18 years, on numerous occasions, I saw firsthand how our community came together to support one another during hurricane, storms, and now large multifamily development. That experience taught me the true meaning of resilience and the power of a united community. But today, many of our neighbors are concerned about traffic, infrastructure, and overdevelopment. I'm running for commissioner because I believe we need leadership that not only listens, but acts. Leadership willing to compromise, not unbending. We need board members who do more than just listen to our residents. We need council members who are able to discern the legitimate concerns raised by residents and make sure that critical questions are answered. We need board members who have a vision for a sustainable future that addresses our long-term needs in a holistic and proactive manner. We need board members who consider all sides of an issue to understand the interests and perspectives of various stakeholders. Forward to discussing my vision with you tonight, and once again, your trust and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Wayne?
On. Good evening, everyone. My name's Wayne Herbert. I live at 102 Oyster Bay Road. I first came to Swansboro in 1994. I met my wife, Terry Ann, and we've been married for 31 years now. Her grandfather was Arrington Littleton, who was born in 1905 on Water Street here in Swansboro. We have deep ties to this community, and we're not ashamed to say that. We have one son who went to the schools here in Swansboro, elementary, middle school, and high school, went on to NC State. He's an engineer who works in Raleigh. He loves coming home to Swansboro, our home. I served 23 years in the Marine Corps as an enlisted officer. My job was basically dealing with operations, planning, training, and budgeting for those aforementioned activities. I have a master's degree in systems management from the Naval Postgraduate School, and I deployed 3 times, all from Swansboro for major contingencies, Kosovo and twice in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And there was this sense of comfort knowing when I left Swansboro because my family was here with our friends and with our community. And I think that's what makes this place so special. When I retired from the Marine Corps, I joined the civil service team at Camp Lejeune, where I continue to work today, doing the same type of job, operations, planning, training, budgeting. I added things like encroachment now, aviation plans and policy, where I managed 3 squadrons, 1 at New River, 1 Cherry Point, and 1 at Beaufort, with a budget of about $20 million for flight hours and for the associated support they need to fulfill their mission. I'm also a senior watch officer for our Emergency Operations Center at Camp Lejeune. So if we have an emergency on base, whether that be related to security, a storm, or a range fire, for example, that's where you'll find me. I have a lot of experience in EOCs, so I know which ones, what they should look like and what they shouldn't look like. My involvement with the community here has been in various activities, most namely with the Parks and Rec Board back in 2010 and 2013, where I was able to be part of the team that helped design what our rec center should look like. I spent some time as the baseball coordinator with Post 78. In 2012, we partnered with the town and we brought a state tournament here to Swansboro. We had dozens of sponsors from across the town. We had the hotel full here, we had the hotel full in Cedar Point. We had families and players from Charlotte, Raleigh, Asheville. We had a super quality event. Some of the parents that are in this crowd tonight helped us pull that off. It wasn't a one-person job, that's for sure. It was a community job, and we did fantastic. The reason I'm running for commissioner is simple. I feel right now that there is a disconnect between the current board and with the current community of Swansboro, and I want to reconnect the board with the community of Swansboro. I want to be an active listener for your issues and your concerns, and it's not my agenda, it's your agenda, and that's why I'm running for commissioner. Thank you.
Pat?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to all of us speak today. My name is Pat Turner. I have lived in Swansboro since 1992. Both of my sons have gone to Swansboro schools. Both of my grandchildren go to Swansboro schools. All my children were in school. I coached their basketball games. I coached planning board, and I became chairperson actually that same year, and stayed in that position until 2013 when I was elected as a commissioner, re-elected in 17, re-elected in 21, and appointed in 24. So I have a real strong passion for Swansboro, what it does. It's important to me. I have a passion for this town. I remember Main Street Extension when it was a gravel road. Many of you may not realize that, but it was a gravel road, and I used to travel that road. That was the shortcut road, but now it's paved. There's lots of traffic. So I want to be able to see Swansboro grow sensibly. I want to see the managed and smart growth that Swansboro has. I want to be part of that, and we can do that through land use and zoning, things that need the community's support. We had that in the last time we did the land use plan, so I'm hoping that we can do that again. I have an experience with a combination of lots of experience, community roots to this town, and I have, again, a passion for this town. Swansboro's growth should make us more financially resilient, but should not make us bigger. And one of the things that I would like to leave you with is that I'm running for commissioner. This campaign isn't about me. It's about all of you and working together. So that's what I leave you with. Thank you.
Tim?
First of all, I'd like to tell everybody, appreciate you coming out. Folks, obviously Tim Vanoy. I've lived in Onslow County since 1995. My wife and I, and coming back from Okinawa, our last tour over there, we moved to Swansboro in 2009. I'm married to Tanya Vanoy, which will be 29 years on 12 October. Happy anniversary. I live at 105 Cormorant Drive. I have two wonderful kids, Kaylee and Caleb, that grew up in this school systems. The reason we had moved here to begin with was because the schools in Onslow County, Swansboro, was the best. We also moved here because of the small town feel. My wife is from Canton, North Carolina. If you've ever been through there, you know that's a small town. And I'm from China Grove, North Carolina originally. So Swansboro was where we wanted to put our roots down. I served in the Marine Corps for 21 years. Between Okinawa and Camp Lejeune were only two duty stations that we stayed with. I retired as a Master Sergeant, a communications chief was my MOS when I retired. My daily duties detailed from policies, laws, and regulations that applied to personnel, administrative, and budgets. During my time in the Marine Corps, I deployed to Mongolia, Indonesia, and twice to Afghanistan in 2010 and 2012. When I retired after 21 years of faithful service, then I got on working with civil service. Currently, I work as a facility planner or engineer technician for public works here on base. I work daily with Navy facilities, government engineers, and contractors on all requirements for installation per base orders and specifications. I review, analyze, and resolve problems to determine progress or shortfalls for projects in military construction, facility sustainment, restorations, and modernization, as well as demolitions. Currently, I'm on the planning board for the town of Swansboro. I was appointed by the commissioners in January of 2024 and again in January of 2025. I'm affiliated currently with Post 356 and Post 78 of the American Legion. Some of my volunteer service has been with Swansboro Softball Association over 10 years, Swansboro Band Booster, 5 years, Homeowners Association, if we all know what that is. My things that I want to get over, the reason I'm running for commissioner, is controlling the growth. I ride the street every day. Small businesses. I'm about the small business staying in Swansboro instead of these big businesses coming in and jumping getting them out of business. Historical preservation. I think that's our identity here in the town of Swansboro. That's what brings in our tourists. And with these issues, if we don't control them.
Thank you, Tim. And we don't want to have to do that, but it's best if we keep the responses to 3 minutes. For the next part of this forum, we're going to give you each a prepared question. First question, we'll start with Commissioner Conaway, and then we will proceed alphabetically. What will guide your decision-making as a commissioner? What will guide your decision-making as a commissioner?
That's a loaded question, Jimmy. I hate to use the word because unfortunately it doesn't flow with a lot of people, but common sense. I mean, there's sometimes you can't find the answer, whether through any data, and it'll tell you otherwise, but something just tells you, you know what, that's not right. So for me, I'd kind of do a little bit of both, whether, you know, common sense or data digging type of thing. So, and of course, everybody's opinion, what other people say. You know, I don't know everything, nowhere near, not even with all of us put together do we know everything. And as I've proven over the last 4 years, I listen to what people have to say. And I don't only just listen, I do what I say I'm going to do.
And my approach would be similar with Jeff there. I believe in totally being open-minded on every topic or issue that would come before the board and before the town. Each one needs to be looked at independently. I don't think there's a cookie-cutter way you could say if it has to do with a commercial development or a residential development or some type of ordinance that's being proposed or considered that may or may impact small businesses or just our community in general. I definitely want your input. Your input's important. If I develop a plan in a vacuum, it's not going to be probably a very good plan. I learned that a long time ago in the Marine Corps from some senior officers who told me if I think I have a good plan, but it doesn't look like it's an executable plan, it's probably not a good plan. And sadly, I've seen that with some of the things that we've had here on our agenda. You know, when I see something on the agenda like paid parking being proposed for the downtown area, to me, that is a very big disconnect on what the town of Swansboro considers. And when I see 100 people show up and with a small business brings a petition to speak out against that, but we continue with discussions and we continue with a PowerPoint presented by the police chief, it makes me wonder, are we really listening to the people? And you should drive the agenda. I shouldn't drive the agenda.
No, it was up there.
Okay.
Now it's gone. But I think it's what will guide your decision-making as a commissioner. As the last two people have said, I think you have to look at everything with an open mind. When we come into a meeting and you have 5 commissioners and a mayor, there's 5 commissioners that will have an opinion on something. You have to be open to listen to what everybody has to say, what each person is being presented. You have to look at the land use, you have to look at CAMA results, you have to look at zoning requirements, and you have to just have an open mind. You look at the infrastructure and if you can afford these things or whether you can't afford these things. Some things come before us and we just can't afford it because of our infrastructure. We've increased police pay and firemen's pay in hoping that helps with the infrastructure at some point, but you do have to look at all things. Citizen involvement, as we've seen in these last couple of months, how important that really is. I think that's really most important, that we listen to what the people have to say. We may disagree with it or we may agree with it, but we have to listen, and you have to actively listen. And by actively listen, you have to be able to not be forming your opinions before you actually vote on something.
Mr. Vanoy?
So my approach will mirror my planning board currently experience. First, I evaluate each rezoning against infrastructure capacity, the school impacts, the police and fire EMS readiness, check consistency with the CAMA land use plan, and consider the planning board's recommendation, and weigh the residents' input. Those things I think are very important. Again, as Mr. Wayne Herbert said earlier, I think that disconnect has been lost between our planning board, and our residency, and following our Common Land Use Plan. And my intent is to use that, and when I make a recommendation or a vote, it's not on, if what the people want, it's not off of all those things put together. It means that we need to ensure that we make the best judgment. And, you can't go off of, I had a commissioner the other day stop and talk to me and tell me it was off of the will of the people, the reason they made the judgment call and voting against Flybridge. I asked what that meant, and he ended up telling me, that when they made that call of the will of the people, that he didn't understand and didn't know all the facts. And I assure you, when I make a recommendation or I do a vote, that I will understand the facts, and I will not make a vote off of majority. It will be the facts.
Thank you. For the second question that we'll pose, we will start with Mr. Herbert. How would you describe your approach to growth and development in Swansboro?
It's a great question, Jimmy, because I think it's at the forefront of a lot of the issues that we've been dealing with in the last 12 to 13 months. I mean, we have a citizen-driven land use plan that was created in 2019. It was amended in 2023. It is really our reference A for how we should be evaluating all things when it comes to development, whether that be commercial, residential, and all those impacts, all those growth pressures that you've heard Tim say, and I know the other candidates will talk about them tonight, on our infrastructure, our roads, our schools, on our services, on our environment, on our wetlands, and all of the comprehensive look of Swansboro. So when you look at our land use plan, as Tim was alluding to, I think you have to look at what is being developed in any type of proposal, residential or commercial, where is it going to be developed, and what will be the impact on the community. And of course, balancing what the revenue may be or the perceived revenue may be against what the expenses will be that may come with that. And ultimately, too, the impact on your quality of a life. I mean, if you look at the census data recently, Swansboro is only 2.2 square miles. We've got a population of about 4,000 people. So when you look at our population density ratio, it's higher than Jacksonville. It's higher than Raleigh. We don't have a lot of land here in Swansboro. That's why it is so important that we be smart when we do develop it. And I like to use that term, controlled growth that is to the advantage of the people in Swansboro, not to the advantage of a developer, especially one from outside of the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Turner? Yeah.
I couldn't write it all down. How would you describe your approach to growth and development in Swansboro? And as Wayne alluded, that is a good question. I think we have to look at the land use plan again. There isn't a lot of property left in Swansboro, but we have to make sure that it's zoned appropriately in the way that we want it. So citizen involvement, like we had the last time, is of utmost importance that we look at this. But once it's zoned something, we can't stop it from happening. Even though people may think that we can stop that from coming into Swansboro, if it's zoned that way, then we have to allow it to be that way. So Swansboro has to be able to manage and have smart growth. And we have to be able to look at the infrastructure. We have to look at affordable housing. But 24 is almost all gone. We hardly have anything left in 24. So where are people going to start looking for developments? It's going to be past 24 into the ETJ, or it's going to be in small little pockets. And so it's up to the commissioners and the citizens to come up with a land use plan that's going to be good for Swansboro in the future.
Mr. Vinoy, do you? There you go. How would you describe your approach to growth and development in Swansboro?
Well, I do think a sense of growth has to be controlled. It's got to slow down for our infrastructure to catch up. I know in the past that everybody says, you know, the state controls the roads, the schools are controlled by the county, but we got to be advocates. We got to get out there, let the county hear us, let the state hear us, and let us know where we stand. Let them come down and sit in Food Line parking lot, those type of things. But you got to be responsible with your economic growth, which will broaden our tax base, diversify our revenue, and reduce pressure on the residents. New revenues should be managed transparently through long-range physical planning, at the same time prioritizing infrastructure, public safety, and maintenance while building healthy reserves and using performance matrix to track results. These are things that not only that we think about, but these are things that have been brought up from the residents and community of Swansboro. And we need to make sure we handle this. If not, it's going to be too late. I can tell you, we've been walking and hitting doors for the past month, talking to probably around 300 to 500 people. And they are disappointed currently in the way our town is growing and the way the impact that's put in. And we need to ensure that we get back a hold of this thing and slow it down. We've got to figure it out. It's not going to be an easy task, but those are the things that I think that will help out.
Commissioner Conaway.
It's bad going last. I got to try to think of stuff to say that they hadn't already said. But, you know, for me, people are going to probably tilt their head a little bit when I say this, but for me, it's not all about revenue, because I think that can be misleading at times. Not all the time, but sometimes you can make data say whatever you want it to say, no matter what it states. But when I think about the way we grow, I'm not worried about revenue coming in at all. That's the furthest thing from my mind. It's the impact on the infrastructure, as everybody else has said, and then the impact on the residents and the business owners. I know a lot of you probably remember what I called the Walmart fiasco. And, you know, I was one of the people standing out there with a sign, you know, against it. And one of the things that hit me was, oh my goodness, right across the street, Tony Battle with Battlefield Tire, they may run him out of business because they can provide something a lot cheaper than he can because they deal in bulk. And that's whenever it kind of hit me to where there's somebody, it's that guy's fault right there behind Jimmy, because I started getting real active with stuff because of that. And I did not want to see that happen here again. Lo and behold, Flybridge comes, and here it is all over again. But I will say, y'all made that easy. That was a no-brainer. Even though it was a hard decision, it was a no-brainer, and it was a lot easier. Apples and oranges, Walmart and this thing, because that was zoned for what they were going to do. But either way, it was still an issue that concerned everybody. I also think we need to have, to properly control it, we need to have better relations with the county on far as moving forward, what's going to be coming down the road. In our community, I don't know how many of you know it, but we have a member of the county planning board that lives in our community. I'm not going to say his name, Roger Brown, but that's the type of person we need to utilize, you know, and trust me, I will be calling him a lot in the future. And I'll be honest, I didn't know he lived in town, or I would have called him before. But there's going to be times, though, as Pat pointed out, that we're not going to be able to do much except for try to work with whoever the developer is to try to get some type of advantage for the town. And I'd rather deal with those issues than rezoning issues, because at least it is a business or a development that we would actually want here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, for our third question, we'll begin with Commissioner Turner.
This is an easy question.
Would you vote to increase taxes?
Absolutely not. I will not. I have said that in every single election that I've run. I will not vote for an increase in taxes. Period. Amen. I will say, however, there have been citizens that would come up to me and say, I don't care if you increase the tax by a penny, but I don't want this to happen. But increasing the taxes, if we can't afford it, we shouldn't be buying it. And I know that's a tough thing to say because of the infrastructure. We have to be able to build the infrastructure also. And so we have to just manage the budget as best we can. But I will not vote for an increase in taxes. That's an easy one for me.
A simple answer. Mr. Vinoy?
It's kind of hard to say. Something's got to give. We don't want to fly bridge, but we want to maintain what we have in our town. Wayne Herbert and myself, over the past 3 months, have had a chance to walk around with the town manager and with all the different commodities within the town. Just so you know, our longest tenured police officer that's on the road is 2 years. Do y'all hear me? 2 years. And the reason being is town cannot compete with Camp Lejeune, with Morehead City, with Jacksonville. That is not only the problem there. Our fire department has the same issue. Our rec center has the same issue. They make $3 less than if they were at the Jacksonville Rec Center. So saying that I wouldn't do taxes, raise taxes, but we also got to keep people here that want to work here, that want to function, to get to know the people, the residents. I would like to say that can't raise taxes, but we do still have to support their salaries. We have to give them things to make them want to stay here. And I would ask, if you ever have a chance, go get with the town manager. Ask him to walk around. I'm telling you, our fire department, police department enjoyed walking us around, showing what they had to work with. And I'm telling you right now, you will be amazed of the shortfalls that they have in this town. You'll be amazed the sleeping quarters that our fire department has to sleep in, where the walls do not meet the roof, the ceiling, where you got birds nesting in their berthing area. Those are the type of things that we have to fix here. We have to keep our people here, and we need to find a way to do that. And this is not a problem. This has been a problem. So I can't answer that straightforward. I would wish not to be able to raise taxes, but we got to keep our people here, and we can't lose. We're down a police officer now. So I can't give you a straight answer on that right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Conaway?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat Pat is. I mean, I've said it since day one for me. I will never vote to increase tax, never, because I truly don't believe we have a revenue problem. We did have a time period during my first year, second year as commissioner. We were fortunate enough to get some money from the federal government, from the American Rescue Plan, and we used a lot of that money, actually most of it, on new vehicles for the police department. We used it for new equipment for the fire department, some real expensive stuff, aspirators, all kind of things, and that helped lift us up a little bit, and it at one point gave us a false impression of how comfortable we were until the reminder was constantly put out there, hey, we're only in this position because we got, $1.3 million, I think it was, from the federal government, and we could get caught up on buying the police cars because we were behind, and we had to buy 5 just to get caught up. And we recently redid the pay scale for the police department this past year, and I'm pretty confident that we will be doing the fire department if I'm still around, and try to get theirs straightened out. So a lot of other administrative things, you know, have been purchased. They're going to last a while, hopefully. New computer systems, the whole 9 yards. So there's going to be money that we're not going to have to do to raise taxes to maybe give more pay raises to the police and fire department.
Hey, Jimmy and I would concur with everyone up here. I have no plans to raise property taxes on the people of Swansboro. To put it in perspective, I mean, we haven't had a tax raise since 2012. Our tax rate at 35 cents is the second lowest in Onslow County. It generates roughly 35% of our annual budget. Our annual budget is about $7.2 million. You know, our property was evaluated or reevaluated, I should say, in 22, so we're due for a reevaluation next year in 2026. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts our property and so forth with the taxes with it. But to Tim's point, you know, I don't think anyone at this table has a crystal ball. No one knows some of the challenges that may come up in front of the town. They don't know what the next Hurricane Florence event might be or anything like that. But I can say unequivocally, I have no plans to raise your property taxes. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vinoy, we're going to start with you on this one. And as you can see, what is your position on the proposed Emergency Operations Center and/or new public safety building? How would you approach the use of the $9 million in state appropriated funding? And what is your view on eminent domain for this project?
First, I'll get out of the way. Eminent domain, I think, is a no-go. I don't think that Swansboro's needed that. And when we talked about Emergency Operations Center, you know, obviously being in the Marine Corps, you got your people that are up here. And when we talk about Emergency Operations Center, that's going to be controlled by Camp Lejeune or Onslow County. So I just recently went to the opening for the Emergency Operations Center, which is a wonderful looking building. Swansboro is invited to have a seat at the table. If I ain't mistaken, the mayor will be that guy probably that goes sit up there during an emergency. What we do need here is a public safety building. Like I said earlier, that public safety building that we currently have is not adequate to support our fire department and police department. I am all about getting a new public safety building, but I think there's a different way of doing it. Here recently, sit down with some old timers here from the town that have dealt with discussions with the Emergency Operations Center as well as the public safety. I think there's other options out there. Vice going out and looking at the eminent domain or buying another piece of property. The thing that was brought up and with Wayne and myself doing a walk around over with the current public safety building or police department, whatever, there's a piece of property right there behind it. I think that it could be turned into our current public safety building while they still utilize our current fire department and police department until things are met. We'd have to move some people around, public works and things like that. So I think on that, is there a way you can pull up that second question, please, sir? Yeah.
Would you approach the use of the $9 million in state appropriated funding?
So obviously there's some things that I'm not in the know when it comes to all this, but I can assure you that we would need to look at how to get the most bucks out of that. How can we make sure that we have a facility that works for Swansboro? You know, one of the things that we need to make sure is when we do these things, we don't do it looking ahead for 1, 2, 3 years down the road, that we're looking at what it's going to do for the next 10, 20, 25 years. And those are things that are important. And we need to ensure that when if we utilize that $9 million for what it's worth, that we use every penny of it and make sure it helps out Swansboro.
Thank you. Commissioner Conaway.
I'm going to start with the easy question first, eminent domain. Let me get it out of the way. Unfortunately, a lot of our discussion about eminent domain. That was all closed session, and nothing has been released yet as far as minutes goes from what I've seen. I'll just say I'm not in favor of it, but sometimes you have options. So, next.
What is your position on the proposed EOC and/or new public safety building? And how would you approach the use of the $9 million?
Yeah, the term EOC is, from day one on this has been taken out of content. You know, as majority of people up here already know, you know, an EOC, unless you're in a wartime situation or a bad, that's manned 24 hours. It's not always manned 24 hours a day. Okay, for what we're going to use it for, we're more on the lines of a public safety building with EOC capability. Okay, so there's a big difference in the two. My biggest thing is location, and my location, as everybody on the board knows, I would rather keep it on campus already. I mean, there's things that we can do, and if we do that, we can use the full, I think it's 9.4 right now. We can use that all on buildings and making the road correct and making sure that they have everything they need to move in. Whereas if we buy a piece of property, we're going to spend, you know, we're going to lose $1 million or $2 million there, and then road access. We're going to have to build a road for them to have access to. I am not totally out. It's not totally out of the question for buying a piece of property as long as the property is in the right location. I would like it to be as close as possible to downtown. As everybody, most people in this room know, that's probably the biggest tinderbox we have in Swansboro, and we don't need the fire department too far away from being able to get downtown fast enough to make sure it doesn't spread from one building to the next.
Thank you. Mr. Herbert?
Hey, I'll take the same path on this one and answer the eminent domain first. That's another one of those controversial topics that appeared on the agenda the same month the proposal for downtown parking did. And it made me sit at a meeting and just wonder, what are we doing? I don't understand why we would use eminent domain, and the way it was worded on the agenda was basically recommending approval and moving forward with that, when it would lead us probably to a very costly lawsuit from the landowner. And I don't think that's what the town is interested in. So I think we need to be aware of that anytime we would pursue anything like that, and I'm just not a fan of it. When it comes to the Public Safety Center, going back to what Tim was saying, having the opportunity to tour our current facility, it's pretty humbling over there, and I won't go back into all the details. So we need to do something. But I'm an advocate that the #1 course of action ought to be, let's build it right where the Public Works Center is right now. Let's relocate our Public Works Center to the Onwassa facility when we get a use of it on Old Hammocks Beach Road, so we can keep police and fire in their current location. So then we don't have to move them, and we don't have to move that infrastructure. We can build a new facility right there on site, maximize that opportunity. Then have them transition into a new facility, and then we can get rid of the old facility and maybe turn that into a parking lot or something like that. But then you can leverage the signs that are already on Highway 24. We don't have to have those added costs. We don't have to have added costs to relocate the fire and the police. Now, if someone shows me that truly is not a realistic and attainable COA, then I'd be into looking at other options into purchasing land. But that's when we get real expensive, obviously. If we've got to do site prep, if we've got to do highway prep, and then we still have to be the facility, build a facility that's going to house, fire, police, and EMS, and some type of emergency operations center. And I believe, as Jeff has said, and as Tim, we need to call it a public safety building. We don't need to call it an EOC anymore. You know, the building itself is what's important for our first responders. We need to have a building that can withstand Category 4 storms to keep them safe, so they can be prepared to keep us safe when we need them and respond to them. And as I alluded to earlier, having experience in the EOC, at Lejeune, where not only do we command and control our police and fire, but we're in charge of getting the power back on, restoring the schools, restoring the child care center, reopening the commissary, which is our supermarket, our exchange, all those services. Swansboro doesn't have those responsibilities. We have responsibilities for fire, police, and EMS, and public works, and we should build a facility that is commensurate for those duties and responsibilities. We don't need a Taj Mahal or anything along those lines. We need a reasonable place that we can house our people during inclement weather like storms, like hurricanes and tropical storms, to keep them safe, again, so they're prepared to support us when we need them. And that's how I feel like we should use our $9 million. I think that's the cost-effective way to use that $9 million.
Thank you. Commissioner Turner?
I'll start with the easy one too, eminent domain. I'm not in favor of eminent domain, but it has been a consideration. Again, as I said in the past, there's not a lot of property in Swansboro. As Tim and Wayne have alluded to, and so did Jeff, that we could use the existing facility, but if I recall, we had a developer come out and show us where the footprint of it. We would lose the majority of the parking that we already have from the police and fire and what Town Hall has, because it comes right down to the edge of it. So although that is a consideration, as is still looking at property, $9 million is not going to get us what we want. Maybe it would have 5-7 years ago, but it's not going to get us what we want. I think the Hubert Fire Department was at $9 or $10 million, and I think we're going to surpass that. So we have to be careful of, if we're going to purchase land, that we have to purchase it at a good price. And we have to be able to look forward to at least 50 years. If we look only 5-10 years, we're going to be looking at the same situation again. But at some point, we're going to have to make a decision, and it has to come pretty quickly, so that we can spend this $9 million, or 9.4 that we already have. That's it.
So for the next phase of our forum, we are going to take questions from the audience. And I'm going to
set up the microphone here in the center of the aisle. Correct?
That's correct.
And if anyone would like to start off the public Q&A, Clayton, I believe you had a question.
Is there,
Oh, okay. All right, let's put you on the spot.
and for this phase, we'll follow the same format. Question will be posed, and we'll let each commissioner candidate have an opportunity to respond.
Okay. Often sustainable growth is kind of a coined term that is thrown around very often. What would be your vision of sustainable growth, or provide an example of a recent project or something you've seen that would mimic that sustainable growth that you would envision? Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, would you like to start with an answer?
Like for me, the biggest thing, for sustainable growth would be, first and foremost, anything multifamily home, no, I take that right out of the equation. So we're pretty much down to single-family homes. But also on the multifamily homes, it really depends on how many we're talking about. I don't know if you've seen, there's a little group of, they're not apartments, but like townhouses down here off of Main Street Extension and Old Hammock, right? There's like 4 of them right there. I don't think that would be so bad, and it can be controlled, fairly easy, depending on how many of those they actually put in. Is there a number? I'm going to be honest with you. When I first saw that picture of Flybridge, when they had it all in color up on the wall, it scared me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's going to be 11 or 12 of those things. Yeah.
When I,
I was going to just say, the question was sustainable growth, how would you promote it? And do you have a potential example?
Absolutely. I'll have one on the residential and the commercial side, if I may. On the residential side, I think sustainable growth is low-density housing. Housing that doesn't put additional growth pressures on our schools, our roads, our infrastructure, and our services. When it comes to a commercial project, I really think we could benefit from a box of doctors here in Swansboro. You know, something like they have in Cedar Point, something like they have on Country Club Road in Jacksonville, something that benefits every person in this room, every person in this town. You know, a place where you could go get labs done, scans done, maybe we could get a pediatrician there, an OBGYN, cardiologist, urologist, what have you. But some type of facility like that to me is something that's sustainable and that pays back to the town daily. As Tim was alluding to, we've been out to a lot of homes, a lot of neighborhoods here in Swansboro, and people like yourselves are telling us they have to travel to Morehead City, New Bern, and Wilmington for doctor's appointments. So if we can do something like that, attract that type of growth here to Swansboro, it's beneficial to all of us.
So sustainable growth. We have to look at the coastal resiliency that we have. We have to look at the infrastructure that we have. So it's almost like, does the chicken or the egg come first? Do you build your infrastructure before you build businesses or you build homes? So, you know, it's the chicken or the egg type of thing. I think that high density is not what Swansboro needs. I think low density is what Swansboro needs. And probably 20, 25 years ago, somebody made a statement that said, you know, 20,000 square foot home, you know, the space that your home is in is what we should be looking for, not 8,000 square foot homes. And people would say, well, people can't afford that in Swansboro. And the comment that was made was, maybe you shouldn't live in Swansboro. But we do need affordable housing. You know, not everybody can afford 20,000 square foot lots. Some people can afford 8,000 square foot lots, but it depends on where you're going to put those infrastructure things. And so it's the chicken or the egg. Do you build your infrastructure first, or do you go ahead and build, you know, your homes and your businesses?
Thank you.
Well, Wayne, I appreciate you stealing stuff. So, again, we walked around, and going off of this sustainable growth, I don't know, honestly, if we've had anything that's come up here lately that's been smart. You know, everything, if you're going out of town towards Hubert, everything's on the left side of the road. Every gas station. You can't even come out of anything and turn left if you come off that side of the road. So, but affordable housing, I think, is a thing to look at, but I think it needs to be put into proper place. It needs to get off the road, off of 24, where the management of traffic can be controlled a lot better. Now, that's going to be pretty tough because, again, as we talked about earlier, Swansboro ain't so big. But it's got to be controlled. And currently, the growth our infrastructure is not catching up to it. And we've got to figure that out. Whether if it's stoplights, doing a bypass, you know, obviously I'm just thinking outside the box, but something's got to be doing that. And what I would ask you to do as you're sitting out here, I can assure you that Tim Vinoy and Wayne Herbert will advocate at the Onslow County and at the state level for you to ensure to try to fix this problem that we have here.
Any other questions from the audience?
Sure. Yes, I can't pass that up. So yeah, question for you guys is, under what circumstances would you vote for a development that did not fit the land use plan? That's question number one. Number two, and if you've been on the board and you gave a pass against something that is, you changed the land use plan for a reason for a developer, it'd be interesting to know why if you have that experience. So that's one question. The other question is, would you ever give a developer a pass for items that are in the ordinances that they didn't have to abide by? Parking, traffic, whatever. Thank you.
So it sounds like the question is, would you agree to vary from the zoning? And under what circumstances would you vote to amend the land use plan to allow a development?
That's question number one. Question number two is the ordinance. Would you enable a developer to skip over an ordinance item?
I'll start with question number two first, Lauren, and no. No, we need to hold developers' feet to the fire to the standards that come with that type of development that's conducive with Swansboro. The first question there, to me, it would have to be an incredibly compelling reason to vary from the citizen-driven land use plan to approve some type of development. Because, again, you want to look at all the factors. Again, the growth pressures we've talked about, the environment, our wetlands, our runoff for our water and so forth. To me, it would have to be an incredibly compelling reason, and off the top of my head, I cannot come up with one right now.
Commissioner Turner.
So it's escaped me, but there is one zoning that allows you to do that, conditional zoning. So if you are going to look at conditional zoning, the commissioners can ask for certain things to be met. They may not necessarily have to meet everything, but in a conditional zoning, it's just that, conditional. So we can put conditions on a developer before we would approve it. So there is a way to do that if a developer comes in and asks for a conditional zoning. Other than that, I would say, no, you wouldn't do that. And the same thing with the ordinance. No, I wouldn't vary against what the ordinance says. Years and years ago, probably 20, 25 years ago, when sidewalks first coming into play, we had a mayor that would allow no sidewalks to be put in. And that was something that they let the developer, because the developer would say, well, that's going to cost me a lot of money. And so the board voted that they didn't want that. I wasn't on the board at the time, but when I got on the board, I couldn't believe it, because I think it was Deer Run was one of the developments that didn't have sidewalks. And the first question I asked is, why don't we have sidewalks in there? Well, because the developer didn't want to spend the money, and the board approved that. So no, I would not do that.
So being working on base and doing this type of stuff, you open up a can of worms when you let someone get by with ordinance, because people talk, people say things. So I would definitely say no. And I assume your question is directly dealing with Flybridge. Those were things that Flybridge wanted to do, needed to do, because they didn't meet our Campbell land use plan. And that's what they were asking for our commissioners to approve it. And per our planning board, we voted 6-0 because it did not meet our Campbell land use plan. And we need to ensure that we uphold that Campbell land use plan. Again, back to the same deal, is I think our planning board voted to take a look at updating the Campbell land use plan. I voted, yeah, let's do that. And what I mean by that is I think that it's necessary that we should send out a survey to our town residents and get their input and see if there's any changes that need to be done on our Campbell land use plan. But I can tell you, at this point, as a commissioner, there's no way that you should be able to go against the Campbell land use plan, the planning board, as well as the residents. And that's what's happened over the last 8 or 9 months. I know I've heard people keep saying it was a hard decision. No, it wasn't. It's a very easy decision. And we need to ensure, as commissioners, that we understand that. That was an easy decision.
Thank you. Commissioner Conaway, you recall the question? When would you give a developer a pass on a zoning requirement, and at what point would you amend the land use plan
Yeah, would you adjust the land use plan
to allow a development?
Yeah, no. It's funny when you asked that question, the the first thing that came to my mind was our email exchange that we had back and forth about the parking spaces, how many parking spaces, and then the percentage of how much money they'd have to provide. Luckily, it didn't come to that, where we'd have to get into that. But, that plan, that land use plan, like pretty much everybody here has stated, that's you guys' plan. That's it. And unless there are some circumstances or information that you don't know, it should not be within me to say, no, you guys are all wrong. This is what we're going to do. I'll give it to them and let's move on. No. I don't think, and there'd have to be some crazy circumstances, before I would do something like that.
Thank you. Jake, do we know anyone else?
We had a couple folks sign up, Scott Chadwick and Doug Rogers wanted to speak, I believe. Does that still hold true?
Please.
Okay, come on up here.
Don't make it too complicated, just the one.
Y'all know I don't have any opinions whatsoever. I really have two, and I'll make them quick. And they're easy questions.
That's good.
They're easy questions. First of all, I'd like to know how you feel about the visitor center, how important it is to you, and how you'd go about fixing that. And just a little background. The chamber used to man that for us. It was a great situation for them and for us. So, and that leads me to my second question. And that is, how would you go about building relationships or rebuilding relationships between organizations like the chamber, the Onslow County Commissioners, and our state representatives?
Thank you. We'll start with Commissioner Turner on that. And Pat, you want to get that written down so you can, because it did seem to have a couple of parts.
I think he's asking what we would do at the visitor center, what our opinion of the visitor center, and how we would rebuild relationships. With various people. Is that true? Okay, because the chamber was part of the visitor center. So the visitor center, what it started out years and years ago, was to help the boating community come in and dock, be able to come into the visitor center, be able to take showers, be able to do laundry. I believe the town even purchased washers and dryers, and we have them in storage. I don't believe that is where we're going with this at this time. I don't think that's feasible. I think the visitor center is supposed to be a visitor center for the citizens of Swansboro who come downtown, who visit Swansboro, who need to use the restroom. And, if we have the chamber back in there again, I would love that, because that was a great relationship. How to rebuild that, I think we have to start at the ground up again. And it's not just with the chamber, it's with state representatives. We have to actually ask them to come and visit with us. I mean, we've had some people come and visit us, but I don't think we've tried to build the relationships that we really need to build. And that's important. How we do that, I'm not quite sure how we do it, but you have to start at square one. You have to start someplace. But back to the visitor center, I'm going to say again, I think the visitor center is for the citizens of Swansboro, not necessarily for the boating community, although they can use it. But do we need washers and dryers? No, I don't believe we need washers and dryers. And I'm not sure we really need showers either. It's for people to use it when we come to festivals and we come downtown, and they can use the restroom. And there's brochures in there where they can go and how they can visit Swansboro, what's in Swansboro that we have to offer them. That's what I would do.
Mr. Manoy, are you familiar with the visitor center question, and then the relationship between the town and the chamber, and also, speaking of relationships, between our state representatives and our county commissioners?
So recently, I've had the pleasure with Mr. Herbert, myself, went and visited the current historical center that we have set up in Swansboro. And I advise anybody, if you've not been over there, to see what's there. I think that's a great opportunity for the visitor center being co-located There's history there. There's things that would bring people in if they knew that that's what's been set up. So we could go around and around more on that, but I think it's needed. I think we get enough tourism that it would bring people in and to help out and show what our history has here to bring in Swansboro. Relationships, just like anything else. I think the Board of Commissioners has got to be a team. You know, I think the mayor's got to be part of the team. I don't think you can make side phone calls. I think that's what's been done over time outside where certain people don't know what's going on. Certain people do. And, the saying what goes on this board stays with the board. That's the way it should be. What we should be doing is making sure that our town representatives or the representatives outside of our town knows that our primary goal is to make Swansboro, like Wayne Herbert would say, Swansboro. Keeping it a small town. Understand what we have here to offer. And we need to build that relationship because the relationship's not there. All right, from the people that we've discussed with and talked with, it's been burnt over time. All right, and some of those individuals are gone, but still, it's got to be made up. And I will tell you, and I've talked to the current mayor, that if I am a representative as a commissioner, I will work with him. And he's told me that he would do the same thing for me. And I think that's a start, and where we get on the same sheet of music, and we make sure when we go outside of this town that we're all talking the same language.
Thank you, Ms. Floyd. Commissioner Conaway, the question was about the visitor center, the future of the visitor center, where it was what decisions were made and what the future should be, and should the town seek another relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, and then build relationships between the county and state representatives.
The visitor center, I've talked to a few people in the past about the visitor center. I personally would like to see the visitor center at the historic building, where the Historic Association is. It's a larger space. There's things that can be done there, and I've been talking with the president of the Historic Association. She's really excited about it. And I think it's a better location because you got the parking lot right across the street from the building, and it would give people a place to park whenever they go to the visitor center. No matter if it's the chamber or anybody else, the first way of fixing a relationship is picking up the phone. We're going to go see them. That's the first step, obviously. You have to go sit down and let these people know, you know what, we're not going to isolate you. There's things that we need your help with. There's things that you may need our help with. So the way things had been running in the past, I got the impression that some people within our town government weren't too inviting for some of these people, and they kind of just pushed everything off and said, well, you know what, they don't need us, fine. I just found it interesting, some of the county commissioners that I talked to pretty much gave me that impression of what their impression of Swansboro was. So, and that's just not be just one of us. I mean, all of us have to, whether it's me, Pat, or whoever's up there, our current mayor. We just need to start talking to move things along. And if I can go back to the visitor center, it's obvious we need restrooms downtown. So that part of the visitor center obviously has to happen. I'm not in favor of porta-johns like we've had down there in the past or anything like that. It doesn't look right in a historic district. So I think we need to get the bathrooms up and running down there as soon as possible. I'm not so much worried about a laundry area for boaters any longer due to the current circumstances that are going on with the dock. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Harper, are you
I got it.
comfortable?
Absolutely.
Okay.
For the current visitor center location, I think it's all about maximizing the bathroom facility space we have down there. I mean, we want to maximize those facilities for everyone who's down there at all times of day, 365 days a year. I think that's more important than for the transient people that may come through who need a shower or laundry option or other things that I've heard discussed at town meetings. Not that those are bad ideas, but I think the optimal idea is to maximize the bathroom space that we could have down there for our daily, our weekly visitors, and of course our festivals and so forth. And then the actual chamber functionality of that visitor center in lines with Tim was saying and with Jeff. I think we go to the Old Town Hall right there in the center of the building. You've got the Heritage Center, if you want to call it, with the Swansboro Historical Association on the right-hand side. If you're looking at the front of the building, you've got the large open space on the left-hand side. You've got the center of the building, which used to be the town hall, where I remember paying our water bill many, many years ago. That space right there would be a great visitor center. You have parking across the street. You have more parking down the street at the town hall. Plus, it allows people to park there, get some information, and walk downtown. Transit through Swansboro, see a little bit of Swansboro, appreciate the architecture, appreciate what we look like, some of the historical homes and so forth, as you walk 2 or 3 blocks. I don't think that's inconvenient to ask people to walk 2 or 3 blocks from a designated visitor center next to our museum, basically, which would provide people a lot more insight about Swansboro, and then go see all the things that come with downtown Swansboro. And then partnering with the commissioners and so forth in the state. We're in a real unique situation here. We have 2 commissioners who live here in Swansboro, Commissioner Buchanan and Commissioner Davis. We've got to have open lines of communications with them, but I'd also say it's incumbent on them to have open lines of communications with us, right? Any communication should be a two-way street. And we need to participate in other venues. Tim and I had the opportunity earlier this year to go to a county planning board meeting when they were proposing 400 homes at the intersection of Bear Creek Road and Queens Creek Road. We were part of that contingent because what they do in Hubert impacts us in Swansboro. And vice versa, what we're doing in Swansboro impacts people in Hubert and Cedar Point and so forth. And what I was really impressed with that night at the county planning board was people across this county feel the same way. The first item on the docket that night was the development and rezoning down Gum Branch Road by Rock Creek. And the residents were just as concerned about overdevelopment and growth pressures as we were. And they were bringing forth the same articulate, factual information that we brought out about Flybridge. So it's a county issue, so we definitely need to partner with our county commissioners and on to the state, to work some of those issues that we have.
Thank you. Was there anyone else? I think we've got time for, I think, one question. Uh-oh. We have time for 2.
Some of the biggest problems we have in Swansboro are traffic and education. The schools are over capacity regardless of what the county tells you. We already know that. The roads, there's got to be some improvement, and there is room for improvement. They can put the blinking lights before the stop lights, but what we have to do, I know you don't control either one of those things, but we have to campaign with the DOT and the Board of Education. Will you help us do that? Will you write letters, go to meetings with us? Because all these people showed up for Flybridge. If you put all the parents that are tired of their kids. Okay, the question is, will you help us? Because they say we can't do it, but we proved we can do it.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
And Mr. Vinoy, it sounds kind of like the same relationship type question. I'm gonna, if you want to tailor your answer to be more specific toward Board of Education and Department of Transportation.
So I think we already do that. I can speak for myself that I think these Board of Commissioners doing that, but where I've seen that we're winning is with the group out here. We've got to continue that. We just can't show up just because the flybridge issue and go away. We've got to do it when Onslow County has their meetings. We've got to go down there. We've got to get our neighboring towns, Hubert, Cedar Point. We've got to become a team. We've got to show these and show that we're there for a fight. If we don't, nothing's going to be done about it. No one cares. Nobody, those guys don't ride down Swansboro. We don't want to talk about one of the commissioner. He's a business owner. He's looking at dollars. We're looking at safety. We're looking at traffic. That's the way I look at it. We need to get a hold of this thing. We was talking the other day, you see it in these towns, we talking to everyone and they say all they do is hear sirens all day long. And when we was out Saturday, that's all we heard. Fire truck going off all day long. One of the things that a lot of towns do, and one thing that I would present to the commissioners and to the mayor is, why are we not positioning our police cars when they're off duty around town? Why don't we position them? People that are not used to the town will think that is a police. It may help some. Why don't we do that? Then sometimes we do have a police officer sitting in them, But we've got to do some things to stop this on our own, because as of right now, we do not have help from the county and state. But we got to think about something that would help us out. And I think that we can sit down and come up with some reasoning to help out on this, to try to help it out and push it. But it takes us all to do it. And I would hopefully, if I'm a commissioner, that every meeting we have people show up. We need to understand what your thoughts are. And the only way that we can do that is if you show up, not through Facebook. We need you to show up. And that what has affected this town over the last 8 or 9 months is because of the people right here. That's all.
Thank you, Tim. So you got the question is relationship between DOT, Board of Education, county.
Yeah, and I mean, that goes back to kind of what I said before about building relationships. And then, you have to, and as far as I'll just go to this, I'll just jump to the traffic thing right away. Number one, the state has pretty much acknowledged how bad a lot of the intersections are here in town. And their fix for it is, there is no fix. It's in writing. There is no fix. That one light down at Queens Creek in 24, there is no fix, nothing. What can so that's why I was kind of amazed when they bought off on the traffic analysis for Flybridge. So you don't think that many vehicles are going to have an impact? Of course they did. But of course that was my statement before we voted on it. But another thing is, I'd spoken to our chief of police, and I told him, I said, we need presence on 24. And we don't need black police cars that people can't recognize. We need black and whites, lights, the whole 9 yards, because I don't know about you, but I see a police car that's marked, I automatically put my foot on the brake. I might not even be speeding. So, there's some things that we could do to help with the traffic, but our traffic problems are all about people's attitudes that are driving. It depends on who's driving. You got a lot of young people out there, and they're bulletproof. They're going to fly, and it doesn't matter if there's a police car behind them or not. But getting people working together again, I don't say it's a dead end, but you got to try. And I think of all of us, whoever the commissioners are, end up going all at one time to their meetings, whether it be the Onslow County Board of Commissioners or Education, we all need to go, and we need to stress your concerns and our concerns, and then not just do it once. I mean, it's going to have to be pretty regular before they start taking it serious again.
Thank you. Mr. Herbert, you comfortable with
I think so, Jim.
what was
Yeah,
posed?
Obviously, there's challenges with the infrastructure, and expanding roads, building extra turn lanes and things like that are very challenging, and the answers, as Jeff was saying, from the state don't appear to be promising, but we have to keep pushing for them. Things I think we can do and even ask that are more realistic as well are synchronizing the lights in town here. And in examining some of the lights, like I'll say the first light when you come into town in Swansboro, why don't we have a dedicated green arrow at the Swansboro-Belgrade Road? Where I live in Oyster Bay, if the traffic's backed up, I try to take the left and go down Swansboro-Belgrade Road, take the loop road and get home. You could be there for a long, long time trying to take that left turn because there's no dedicated green arrow, and that doesn't seem like a hard ask. So things like that go back to common sense. I think we've got to find a way to push those buttons with the state because it doesn't seem to be that difficult. Coming over here this evening, we waited through 2 cycles of the light on Old Hammocks Beach Road to take a left on the Highway 24. You know, at that time of evening, that light needs to probably be a little longer. So there's, I think, some things like that we can push for, and I would find it hard to believe that the state could tell us, no, we can't adjust the timing on lights or give you a dedicated green arrow at certain lights and things like that. So those things would be improvement. And to some of the other points made, a police presence on Highway 24, I think, is crucial. We know what it looks like in Cape Carteret, right? You go past Lowe's, you go toward Bogue Field, and you're looking left and right because we know that's a notorious area. I'm okay if we turn Swansboro into a notorious area like that too and slow people down. We've obviously had some untimely and some unfortunate accidents with pedestrians, right? We had a young lady hit, right there at the intersection of 24 and Old Hammocks Beach Road, who was a runner. We don't need incidents like that here in our town. So if we can work with the police to get more of a presence on Highway 24, that's nothing but goodness for Swansboro. And when it comes to education, I think we would all agree, especially if we've had kids go through these schools, we need another middle school in Onslow County. I know schools are expensive, and we need to work with the board to find out where is that on the schedule. But as we were told at a recent commissioners meeting on the 10-year plan, none of the Swansboro schools were listed on the county's 10-year plan for any kind of enhancements. And to be honest, that's just unacceptable. So we need to work with them. We need to make sure they understand the pressures we're having down here. I mean, we know a couple teachers, and they're telling us they're over capacity at the middle school. A gentleman told us at a town meeting that he's got 34 students in his classes. I remember when my son went through the middle school a decade ago, there weren't 34 students in the classes. We've got kids in trailers at the schools. So we have to try everything within our power to improve those conditions on behalf of the residents and families of Swansboro.
Thank you. Commissioner Turner, you comfortable?
I'm good. So Jamie, you ask this question every meeting, actually. So every meeting you get up in it, and I'm not sure you ask the question, you make comments on it. But what your comment was, or your question was, will you advocate for these things? Yes. Yes, I think as a board we can advocate for these things. We can write letters. We can show up at meetings. DOT has not been very promising for us. They were supposed to do Queens Creek Bridge. Now it's been put off. That whole that whole road is a death trap. I know my son lives off of that, and he says he's not going to live there when his kids start driving because it's not, if you're going to have an accident, it's when you're going to have an accident. It's that dangerous because it's so curvy. But as far as the traffic, I think the lights could be synchronized better. When I leave for work at 10 to 5 in the morning, I'm shocked I have to stop at a stoplight and wait for 30 seconds or more, and there's no cars. There's absolutely no cars. If you go in towards the base, they have put a signal out there. We used to have one out that shows how fast you're going, but the signal down in 24, closer to the base, actually, if you're going over the speed limit, it flashes blue, like there's a policeman there. And so if you see that, I do notice that people slow down a little bit. I don't think we have that kind of a traffic
signal, but it really did help because I do notice that people stop even at 5 o'clock in the morning, they slow down. As far as the schools, we have 2 elementary schools feeding into a middle school. Now, anybody with any common sense knows that that's going to be overcrowded. So do we need another middle school? We probably do need another middle school. But if we don't start going to meetings and start being a pest to these people, they're going to keep ignoring us. So I think we just have to be pests. So I think we just keep going to meetings, we make phone calls, and we say, what are you going to do for us? What are you going to do for us? And if we keep hearing no, we keep going. If we have to write letters, we write letters. If we show up at meetings, we show up at meetings. So yes, we'll advocate for you.
Thank you, Commissioner Turner. Do we have time for one more, or?
I don't believe we do.
Okay.
I think we're there. Is everyone satisfied in this meeting? Folks, I'm going to make my closing remarks. Thank you, Jimmy. Common Sense Swansboro would like to thank the candidates for their participation in tonight's forum. We wish you the best of luck come November. I hope everyone that lives in town will exercise their civic duty and vote. Thank you to all the folks in attendance. Community engagement is what we strive for, and we hope that you will tell your friends and neighbors what you have learned tonight. We will be sharing the recording of the forum on Common Sense Swansboro's YouTube page, and will send notification of that out via Facebook. So please like and follow us there for more information. Thank you again to Swansboro United Methodist Church, and thank you to Jimmy Williams and Whitney Cantrell for their help with this forum, and Sanders. Don't forget your kids if you drop them off tonight. Good night.
Thank you, Whitney.